There is a hidden pattern woven into the structure of reality. A pattern as ancient as the universe itself, subtle enough that most people spend their entire lives without ever noticing it. It doesn't appear explicitly in academic history, although echoes of it can be found in spiritual traditions around the world. It isn't directly stated in modern scientific theories either, although its influence is felt in phenomena that quantum physics still struggles to fully explain. This pattern, often associated with Hermetic teachings and with the symbolic figure of Thoth, should not be understood as a literal deity, but as a metaphor for an underlying intelligence that permeates everything. What is historically verifiable are the ancient records describing universal principles. What is part of modern interpretation, and what we will explore together, is how these principles continue to operate quietly, shaping perception, choices, and personal timelines. Throughout the next few minutes, I invite you to observe something that may have always been right before your eyes. Repeating patterns, synchronicities, emotional cycles, intuitive insights that appear like whispers, moments when reality seems to respond to your internal state. Many call this coincidence, others call it imagination. But through the lens of consciousness, and even through modern science, these experiences reveal a deeper mechanism connecting mind and universe. What if you could learn to recognize this pattern? What if you could use it to navigate your own reality more consciously? This is not about controlling the universe. It is about learning to communicate with it. Neuroscientists speak of neural coherence. Physicists speak of probability fields. Psychologists speak of mental maps. Spirituality calls all of this alignment. Different languages describing at their core the same truth. The way you organize your energy determines the way reality responds. In this video, we will explore these ideas with clarity and responsibility. When something is symbolic, I will make that clear. When something is supported by research or observable phenomena, I will state it directly. My intention is to merge science and spirituality in a grounded, meaningful way. Before we go deeper into this hidden code of creation and perception, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. This is not just a technical action. Each new subscriber expands this collective field of consciousness, helping more people receive transformative content. Like, comment, and share, not only to help the algorithm, but to strengthen the vibration we are building together. A bit later, we will talk about how your words and choices influence your personal timeline. Take a deep breath. Feel your awareness arriving fully here. Together, let's cross the threshold between the obvious and the unseen. When we begin to observe reality through a more refined lens, we realize that nothing exists in isolation. There is always a structure beneath every movement, every event, every experience we encounter. Many ancient traditions describe this structure as a universal principle, not in the literal sense of a physical law, but as an understanding that the universe operates through rhythms, correspondences, and repeating patterns. Hermetic philosophy called this the principle of harmony or correspondence, and although these teachings cannot be verified scientifically in the traditional sense, their essence echoes the modern study of fractals, systems theory, and pattern formation. What's most fascinating is that this hidden pattern doesn't only organize galaxies and particles, it operates within us as well. Neuroscience speaks of the brain creating predictable maps, constantly seeking coherence between internal and external stimuli. Psychology describes how emotional patterns shape perception and decision-making, often without our conscious awareness. Quantum physics highlights the interdependence between observer and observed, suggesting that reality is not a static backdrop, but a dynamic field responsive to consciousness. When we weave these perspectives together, we see that the pattern is not only cosmic, it is personal. It appears in synchronicities, in moments when life flows effortlessly, and even in periods of chaos that signal the need for internal reorganization. This is not about fixed destiny or a mystical force controlling your life. It is about coherence, the moment when your internal vibration, thoughts, actions, and emotional alignment begin to resonate with the reality around you. When this happens, choices become clearer, coincidences become meaningful, and pathways that once seemed closed begin to open. A little later, we will explore how this same pattern branches into multiple possible realities, a concept that both quantum science and spiritual symbolism attempt to describe in their own language. For now, what matters is recognizing that this pattern relies not on belief, but on observation. When you begin noticing recurring themes in your life, repeated symbols, or a constant pull toward certain experiences, you are starting to decipher the language through which reality speaks. And if you want to strengthen this perception, leave a like and share in the comments what most often repeats in your personal journey. This not only expands our collective field, but also creates an energetic marker that amplifies your own clarity. As we move forward, it's essential to understand that this pattern hinted at by many ancient traditions is not an external, arbitrary force, but a vibrational architecture that organizes both the physical world and the mental world. Ancient cultures represented it through geometric forms, what we now call sacred geometry. Historically, what we can say with certainty is that figures like the flower of life, Metatron's cube, and the Vesica Piscis appear across civilizations that had no contact with each other. This suggests an intuitive, or perhaps observational, recognition of recurring structures in nature. The modern interpretation is that these forms represent the base code of the universe, reflecting mathematical patterns found in biological systems, natural formations, and even electromagnetic behavior. When we look closely at nature, we see fractal organization everywhere. Galaxies, clouds, leaves, the structure of the lungs, the electrical pathways of the heart, all repeating variations of a single design. Science knows that fractals describe self-organizing systems in which small units replicate the structure of the whole. Spirituality sees this as a symbolic truth. If everything repeats an essential pattern, then human beings also carry this architecture. What is out there expresses itself in here. This is where a crucial insight emerges. Sacred geometry is not merely a set of aesthetically pleasing symbols. It is a visual metaphor for harmony between thought, emotion, and action. When someone is said to be aligned, it means they operate coherently with little internal conflict, radiating a clear vibrational field. When someone's life feels chaotic, their internal pattern is fragmented. Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance. Neuroscience calls it neural incoherence. Spirituality calls it energetic misalignment. Different languages describing the same truth. Later on, we will explore how these patterns branch into parallel realities and how even small choices can profoundly shift your timeline. But first, I invite you to reflect on a moment when life felt fluid and synchronized, when doors opened effortlessly. Those moments were not random, they were signs of internal coherence. And now, a powerful reflection, one of the most important for you to anchor. The affirmations you record, here in the comments or in your personal journal, are more than words. They are vibration codes. When you write, read, and repeat consciously, you create an energetic circuit that reprograms the mind and anchors a new timeline in your field. When I invite you to comment, it's not merely for engagement, it's to feed the collective field of consciousness. It is a practice of anchoring. Daily repetition transforms vibration into identity. So, if you wish to seal this understanding now, write, here or for yourself, I consciously choose the frequency that creates my world. Repeat this phrase over the next few days, aloud or silently. Let it become the soundtrack of your vibrational field. Because each time you say it, the universe reorganizes its particles around this new coherence, and gradually, everything that doesn't resonate with it dissolves, naturally, effortlessly. Take a breath. This affirmation will accompany us throughout the journey. Now that we have established the idea of a vibrational architecture within the universe and within ourselves, we can move into one of the deepest and most delicate aspects of this conversation, the way this pattern unfolds into multiple possibilities of reality. Here, it is essential to separate what is scientifically verifiable from what is symbolic interpretation. Quantum physics, especially in the study of subatomic particles, shows that systems can exist in multiple simultaneous states until observation collapses the wave function. This phenomenon, measurable and well documented, demonstrates that reality at its most fundamental level is not fixed. It is probabilistic. What belongs to modern interpretation, rather than literal science, is the idea that this behavior extends directly to human experience on a macro scale. But there is a bridge: consciousness. When contemporary spirituality speaks of parallel realities, it refers to different potential paths that reorganize according to our choices, emotions, and dominant vibrations. Not literal physical versions of yourself, but cognitive and perceptual maps that reflect different outcomes depending on how you align internally. Neuroscience offers a compelling insight. The brain works through prediction. It creates future expectations based on past emotional patterns. If you consistently live in fear, scarcity, or self-sabotage, the mind automatically selects pathways that confirm those states. If you operate from clarity, presence, and trust, the mind broadens its perceptual field, allowing new opportunities to emerge. Spirituality describes this as shifting timelines, not because you jumped into another universe, but because you reorganized how you perceive, choose, and act. We will explore practical techniques for interacting with these branches of possibility later on. For now, consider a simple example. Two people experience the same external event, losing a job. For one, it becomes a spiral of fear and paralysis, reinforcing a fragmented internal pattern. For the other, it becomes a catalyst for reinvention, a new project, a dormant idea awakened, a direction never previously considered. The event is the same. The internal pattern is different, and when the pattern changes, reality reorganizes around it. Now that we understand how potential realities reorganize according to our internal state, we can go deeper into one of the most important aspects of this journey: how you, in your daily life, follow or break the pattern without noticing. This is where science and spirituality intersect in a very clear way. Cognitive psychology shows that most of our choices are automated, driven by unconscious mental habits. Neuroscience adds that more than 90% of our daily thoughts are repetitive. Contemporary spirituality interprets this as the subconscious mind dictating the dominant vibration you emit into the world. When someone breaks the pattern, it refers to moments when the person disconnects from their internal coherence. It happens whenever you act out of fear instead of clarity, urgency instead of presence, reaction instead of awareness. These small misalignments accumulate over time, creating perceptual distortions. Life seems to push back, not because the universe is denying you something, but because you are emitting contradictory frequencies. You desire abundance but vibrate scarcity. You seek expansion but maintain old emotional habits. You want change but embody the same internal state. Let's make this practical. Imagine you want to attract a better professional opportunity. Consciously, the intention is there, but soon after, your automatic thoughts begin to fire. It's not the right time. I'm not good enough. The economy is unstable. Even if you take external action, the vibrational pattern has already been disrupted because your emotional body is still operating from insecurity. Quantum physics does not claim that emotions literally change physical reality, but it does show that observation influences systems. In human terms, this means the way you perceive a situation shapes the way it unfolds. On the other hand, following the pattern means aligning intention, emotion, and action. When this alignment occurs, subtle changes begin to appear. Increased clarity, greater focus, heightened presence. It's as if your steps become more precise. Spirituality calls this coherence. Neuroscience calls it neural synchrony. Psychology calls it alignment between beliefs and behavior. Three languages pointing to the same internal state. As we move forward, we arrive at an essential point for anyone seeking to understand the hidden pattern in depth: the signs. These signs do not appear as supernatural events. but as subtle cues that, when ignored, keep life fragmented, and when recognized, reveal increasing alignment with your highest timeline. Let's distinguish what is observable evidence from what is symbolic interpretation. Psychologists identify a mechanism called selective attention, which filters stimuli based on emotional relevance. This is scientifically verifiable. Spirituality interprets the same phenomenon as synchronicity, the universe responding to your vibration. Both perspectives can coexist. They simply illuminate different layers of the same experience. The first sign of alignment is the appearance of meaningful repetition. Not simple coincidences, but symbolic patterns that feel like messages. Recurring numbers, repeated themes in unrelated conversations, ideas that insist on returning throughout the week, unexpected encounters pointing you in a clear direction. Scientifically, this can be linked to focus and neural predisposition. Spiritually, it is the field guiding you toward a particular path. The experience is real. The interpretation depends on the lens you choose. Another powerful sign is the emergence of what can be called silent clarity. It's that feeling that something is right even before external evidence appears. Research on emotions shows that the body often reacts before the mind, producing microsignals that influence decisions. Spirituality interprets this as intuition, communication with an expanded layer of consciousness. Regardless of interpretation, aligned people make decisions with fluidity and precision. There is also the phenomenon of acceleration, opportunities appearing rapidly, doors opening with ease, the right people entering your life at the right time. It may feel like magic, but in practical terms, your internal coherence allows you to perceive and act on opportunities that previously went unnoticed. When the pattern is active, you respond more effectively to reality, and reality responds more effectively to you. And finally, there is a sign few people appreciate: discomfort. Yes, discomfort. When an old pattern begins to dissolve, the mind resists for psychological survival. This creates tension, restlessness, the urge to step back. Do not interpret this as failure. Interpret it as reorganization. It is your internal field reshaping itself. A little later, we will explore how to navigate this transition without losing yourself. If you recognize any of these signs in your life, write in the comments, "I recognize the signs of my alignment." This reinforces your perception and strengthens the collective field. Now that we have identified the signs of alignment, we can move into the question that most people are eager to understand, and the one that requires the most responsibility: how to consciously access this pattern and use it to adjust your personal reality. Before any technique, it's important to clarify what is verifiable and what is symbolic. Neuroscience shows that the brain is shaped by repetition, focus, and emotion. Physics demonstrates that systems reorganize according to coherence patterns. Spirituality interprets these principles as tools for manifestation and consciousness expansion. The intersection lies in practice. What you repeat, feel, and visualize creates mental circuits, and those circuits shape your choices, behaviors, and perceptions, which means they shape your lived reality. The first technique is emotional coherence. This means aligning your mental intention with a matching bodily state. If you think abundance but embody fear, there is no alignment. A practical starting point is 3 minutes of slow, intentional breathing with attention on the center of your chest. This induces heart coherence, a scientifically researched state in which heart rhythms, breathing patterns, and brain waves synchronize. In spiritual terms, this synchronization opens the doorway to intuition and vibrational recalibration. The second technique is directional visualization, but not fantasy-based visualization, choice-based visualization. Imagine a timeline in which you act with clarity, purpose, and confidence. Feel the behavior, not only the outcome. Psychology calls this mental modeling. Spirituality calls it vibrational shifting. The practice is the same. You train the brain to recognize a future possibility as a valid reference point. The third technique is conscious declaration, directly linked to what we practiced earlier. The affirmation, "I choose the highest timeline," is not just a beautiful sentence. It functions as an internal command that interrupts automatic patterns and redirects your attention. The phrase itself doesn't change reality, the state it evokes does. Use it whenever you feel confused or misaligned. The fourth technique is coherent minimal action. Every timeline stabilizes through action, not only vibration. Ask yourself daily, what is the smallest step I can take today that honors the reality I am choosing? Small steps create large shifts. We now move into an essential stage for anyone who truly wishes to work with the hidden pattern in a mature and grounded way. Understanding the mistakes that block conscious manifestation and distort your personal reality. This is crucial because many people, even with sincere spiritual intention, end up reinforcing incoherent patterns without realizing it. Some of these errors are supported by psychology and neuroscience, while others belong to symbolic spiritual interpretation. But all of them affect the way you shape your life. The first mistake is over-rationalization. Thinking is not the problem. The problem arises when thinking becomes a barrier to perception. The analytical mind is excellent at planning and evaluating, but it is not designed to detect subtle signals such as intuition, synchronicity, or internal coherence. Science shows that when the prefrontal cortex is overactivated, emotional processing becomes suppressed. Spirituality describes this as disconnecting from the heart. When rationalization dominates, you lose sensitivity to the pattern, and you begin to force reality instead of interacting with it. The second mistake is confusing desire with vibration. You may intensely desire something and still vibrate scarcity. Psychology confirms that when a desired goal is linked to fear, anxiety, or comparison, the brain registers it as a threat rather than expansion. Vibration is your emotional baseline, not your conscious intention. This is why many people repeat positive affirmations without results. They try to override a deep emotional state with surface-level words. The third mistake is accumulating micro-contradictions. These are small daily actions that break the pattern. Wanting peace, but consuming chaos. Wanting abundance, but acting from self-doubt. Wanting clarity, but remaining in environments that drain energy. Neuroscience calls this behavioral incongruence. Spirituality calls it vibrational misalignment. Both describe the same outcome, a confused, fragmented reality. The fourth mistake is misinterpreting discomfort. As mentioned earlier, when you begin aligning with the pattern, old structures dissolve, which can trigger resistance. Many interpret this as danger, when in truth it is reorganization. Discomfort is often the clearest sign that a doorway is opening. And the fifth mistake is failing to take action. Vibration without action leads to fantasy. Action without vibration leads to burnout. Coherence is the meeting point between the two. We've reached the end of this journey, though not the end of the subject, because the hidden pattern we explored today is not something to merely understand, but something to embody. What we walked through together is a bridge between two realms: the scientific understanding of mind, patterns, perception, and probability, and the symbolic wisdom that ancient traditions used to describe what lies beyond ordinary senses. We kept a commitment to distinguish what is scientifically established from what is interpretive, yet we allowed both dimensions to meet. Because life is not divided the way textbooks are. Life is experiential. If there is one core insight to carry with you, it is this: you are not a passive observer of your reality. Your internal states, emotional, mental, vibrational, reorganize your perception, and your perception reorganizes what you call your path. When you align with the pattern, it is not the universe that changes. You change, and that shift alters everything the universe can reflect back to you. We explored the vibrational architecture expressed in fractals, geometry, psychological cycles, and daily choices. We saw how possible realities exist as probabilities that expand or contract depending on your internal coherence. We recognized the signs, synchronicities, intuition, sudden clarity that appear when the field is aligned. We learned techniques for accessing this pattern: emotional coherence, directional visualization, conscious declarations, and minimal coherent action. And finally, we identified the mistakes that weaken alignment: over-rationalization, confusing desire with vibration, behavioral inconsistencies, resistance to discomfort, and lack of action. All of this converges into a simple principle. The highest timeline is a daily construction. It is not a mystical destination, nor something that comes from outside. It is a state of being that emerges when what you think, feel, and do move in the same direction. If this message resonated with you, share it. Help expand this field of consciousness, because every awakened person illuminates hundreds of others. Leave your comment, your vibration, your testimony, not for engagement alone, but because your energy is part of this collective creation. And remember, the highest timeline is not a place in the future. It is a state of being, available here and now. May you walk in clarity, peace, and love. Until the next awakening.